Welcome to another edition on this Thursday of Thursday Coast with our very special guest, Marcos Melissus, the founder of the largest online progressive community, Thursday Coast. Welcome, Marcos, once again. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Still in Chicago, I see. Have you been watching the World Series?
No, I haven't actually. It's my last week here in Chicago, heading back home tomorrow, and I've been hanging out with friends.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to do. Do you celebrate Halloween?
Now that my kids are older, much less so. So it's not. Um, we used to Berkeley loves Halloween, and I used to go all out decorating my house. But once the kids grow up, I don't know, it becomes less important.
Yeah,
And
no.
I'm not a party person myself, and that's a big part of it. I'm deeply introverted, and yeah, the idea of being in a big party scene's just never been my thing. So
You don't dress up either?
no, I don't go to the party, so I don't dress up.
We can probably, under the circumstances, define this moment we're in currently as its own um, house of horrors. No pun intended, but maybe it is a pun,
I mean, it is.
right?
Yes.
There's enough. We don't need made up stuff. We got scary stuff going on right now here in this country. I need to see what day. I think we're approaching 30 days of the shutdown.
Hmm.
Uh, I think the longest um, um, was like 32 days. So October 1st, and what's today? It's shut down October 1st. Today is the third. So it's we're this is day 30. Once we've at the end of today, it'll be day 30.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into day 31 tomorrow. The longest shutdown was 35 days, 95, 96. Have you gotten any indication that there's an end in sight?
No, the Republicans are convinced that Democrats will cave because historically Democrats always cave. so they're just apparently they're waiting and but what's going to happen, Mark, is that SNAP is going to expire. The food stamps, and that is disproportionately affects rural Americans, which are represented almost exclusively at this point by Republicans. And that's why I see Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the first Republicans to really break ranks, and because she represents a farm district where probably the vast majority of her constituents, or at least a significant portion of them, are on government benefits. And it's going to be interesting what happens when their own constituents start screaming at them because they're literally going to be starving because they literally won't be able to afford to eat. And there is a perception in the Republican Party, and I think this is a widely held perception amongst all Americans because it's never been counter programmed and the propaganda is so strong. But there's this perception that, as one prominent Republican was talking about, like people that are on food stamps need to stop being so ghetto, right? Like, and the implication being that it's Black people that are receiving food stamps, but disproportionately, it's rural white people, and they're about to get hit hard. So it
Yeah.
should be interesting.
And it is. I mean, I live in an area. I live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and it's not a majority Black population here. People here use food stamps.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so it is myth that that is not real. Um,
And I
um,
like to remind people too that Republicans they can open up the government today if they wanted to. They don't need Republicans to do so. They're claiming that it's a filibuster in the Senate, but the filibuster in the rule can be changed with a 51 vote majority, just the way that Republicans did it to Supreme Court justices to be able to ram through their justices. Democrats did it too at one point because Republicans were blocking President Barack Obama's executive branch appointments. So they changed the rules so it was majority. The rule can be changed literally tonight to make like within the next 5 minutes. They can change the rule easily, and they can pass their budget without a single Democratic vote. So the fact that they're not doing it is just a sign to me that they actually I don't know what the sign is. I don't know why they're not doing that. I just don't think they care. It seems to me that they think that this is a great excuse to further trash government, and that somehow that it'll land on the Democrats, and it's the Democrats' fault. Uh, I don't think it's landing that way.
No, it's not. But I think it also reveals what their real agenda is. There's not an interest in reopening the government. And I may have said this last week. I don't know. Um, the people get elected, Republicans get elected, so they can shut down the government. They shut down the institution that even pays them. It's like you apply. I'm gonna come apply for a job at Daily Toast so I can shut it down.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about it.
Hmm.
Got the numbers here, folks. Food stamps: 37% white, 26% black, 16% Latino, 4% Asian. Oh, 1 to 2%. Let me correct that. 1 to 2% Native American. Um, that those are the numbers for food stamps. So the overwhelming majority of people, well, not I shouldn't say overwhelming majority, but the plurality of people who are food stamp beneficiaries are white.
But here's the thing: that the stats a little more complicated than that. Um, on a per capita basis, there are more larger percentage of the black population is on food stamps than the white population, right? That's what they would answer with. Thing is that most of those whites are rural whites. White people living in cities generally are wealthier. They're better off. They're less likely to be on food stamps. Um, that 37%, I would bet that 90% of that is rural white people, and almost all of them at this point are represented by Republicans. That's going to be the challenge. The other piece of that is that most of those are in red states. Yeah, there's white people obviously in California, rural white people, conservatives in California, right? But a ginormous chunk of those are in red states. Blue state beneficiaries are more likely to be able to benefit from blue state policies that provide assistance. In California, Gavin Newsom has mobilized a National Guard to send food aid to communities that are impacted by the shutdown. That stuff don't happen in red states. They don't have those resources. And the same thing happens with FEMA, with Trump gutting, and essentially he's working to shut down FEMA. What are the states that get most hit by natural disasters? It's Georgia, it's Florida, it's Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, it's Hurricane Alley, it's Tornado Alley, right? It's Kansas and Kentucky and Iowa. Places that get flooded, it's the Dakotas, Iowa again, Kentucky again, Tennessee. These are all mostly red states. Now, California obviously gets hit with earthquakes and fires.
Right. Right.
California is the fourth largest economy in the world. California can take care of itself if it needs to. Iowa cannot take care of itself if it needs to. That's the difference. And this really goes down to this point that I've been making all year long, that blue states have been bailing out red states for generations. And we liberals were totally fine with it because we're Americans first. They've decided that they're not. They've decided that blue America is the enemy, that blue cities are the enemy, yet we're the ones subsidizing their way of life. They cannot function without it. They don't have a postal service. They don't have internet without us. They don't have schools without us. They don't have farms without that. The government subsidies for the farming sector are tens of billions of dollars a year. So now we're in a situation where Trump and the GOP has bought into their own propaganda that it is the blue states and blue cities that are sucking America dry, and they're shutting down programs that they think are benefiting us. When, as we've talked quite a bit, Mark, blue America is now pretty wealthy. We're the wealthy part of America now. So by cutting off programs that help disadvantaged people in disadvantaged communities, they are disproportionately hurting themselves. So this is what's going to be interesting next month. That as a per capita, white people aren't the largest recipients of SNAP benefits, but they are the largest part of rural America, which is represented by Republicans. They're going to be hearing it. They are going to be hearing it.
So I have an assignment for you because we've talked about that. I need you to do or publish, even if you can't publish on Daily Coast, you should publish on Daily Coast because we need a visual. Marcos, please do us a chart of blue states and red states and how red states benefits from blue states.
Oh, they exist, and I've written about them before. I will send that to you.
Please do, because I
Uh,
want to share. I want people to see that
yeah.
full appreciation of what that is. Um, I mean, if you haven't now, fine, but don't. I mean, don't kill yourself. But why are you doing that? Let me just point out a couple of things here that are going on. This is from military.com. Headline: Snap is everything. Military families, vets prepare for empty fridges, y'all. So this affects everybody. These are folks in the military. These are our veterans, and I presume even those in active service. Let me go through this. Um, um, 40 million Americans, 1 in 8, rely on SNAP. 1.2 million veterans are enrolled now, according to the National Council on Aging. More than 20,000 military families, 213 National Guard and Reserve members, and more than 1 million veterans rely on such benefits, according to veteran.com. So these are irrefutable numbers when it comes to veterans. So, I mean, if we, Marcus was talking about rural whites, we talk about a disproportionate number of African Americans per capita. But these are folks who serve in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it highlights Juan Sorrow, who lives on fixed disability payments. And by the middle of the month, his money's gone. So he needs SNAP to feed his family. Sorrow said he once opened his refrigerator and saw one onion for his family in the refrigerator. That's what we're dealing with right there. All right. So food banks are coming online. Folks, if you're blessed and you want to do something, help out with a food bank this weekend. Here's Josh Hawley's opinion piece in the New York Times. No American should go to bed hungry. Uh, well, Josh, why don't you do something about it?
You can do something about it, right?
The government, he writes, the government shutdown has already touched countless lives, and not for the better.
If only he had some power to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, they could literally stop this.
And just for people who may not just know off the top of their head, Josh Hawley is a Republican senator from Missouri. But it is telling that Missouri is very much a rural state, Mark. And it is going to be rural state Republicans and rural state Congress people. I think they're almost all rural at this point. They're going to start feeling it. They're going to start feeling it because it is their constituents that are disproportionately affected. And it's going to be fascinating because these are the same people that think that they're subsidizing Black people in cities, right? It's the same crowd as they essentially live off federal government benefits. So it is going to be absolutely fascinating to see what happens in the next couple of weeks as they lose their ability to buy food.
Here's a response to Josh Hawley, who could do something about it. That was published in the New York Times, a response to the editorial board of the New York Times, to the editor, having read Josh Hawley's piece. Senator Hawley, Missouri Republican, is rightly concerned as the government shutdown continues. Millions of Americans will soon lose their SNAP benefits and could go hungry. He says there are two possible options: pass clean funding bill, pass his bill to provide food aid. He does not mention a third option, which is for him and his fellow Republicans to agree to amend the government funding bill to extend the health insurance subsidies that Democrats are demanding. If the subsidies disappears, Republicans intend millions of poor people will lose their ability to afford health insurance. Meanwhile, those slightly better off will struggle to pay the higher health insurance prices without subsidies. Why is feeding poor people essential, but providing them with medical care is not? This writer is pretty much talking about the Sophie's choice before us. In the immediate, people need to eat. In the long term, people need health care. Um, this Herein lies the problem. So now you sent me, because I want to see this. Marcos has shared um, U.S. states most dependent on the federal government. Um, Let me see if I can. I'm gonna put those of you, if you're not doing this right now, you can join us on social media and see this for yourselves, folks. And we're gonna put this screen up, and we'll highlight some of it for those of you listening, audio wise. The U.S. states most dependent on. Well, that's an ad. I don't want an ad on here. Okay, now I think I got it. Let's see if we can do this again. Because Marcus has been making this point. I think we need to take a look at this. Um, States dependent on the federal government. Now, Marcos, you want to explain this so people can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a sort of ranking of the states that receive that are most dependent on federal funding, and of the top 10 states, you basically have
Jesus.
New Mexico and Maine at number 10, and then the District of Columbia. Now, DC is funky because that's the federal government is in DC, right? So it's actually shocking that DC is not number one. At 13 and 14, you have Maryland and Virginia. Again, it's all federal workers, right? So that's not, it's a bit skewed. Hawaii is skewed because Hawaii has massive military presence, right? You have you have an Army division there, and you have the Pacific Fleet is headquartered there. So, but when you look at the rest of it, West Virginia, rural Republican state, is number 2. Alaska, Republican rural state. Mississippi at 4, Republican rural state. Alabama at number 6, Republican rural state. Kentucky, Republican rural state. Arizona, purple, but right now Republican rural state. Montana, Republican rural state. Louisiana at 12, Republican. These are all some of the reddest, most southern states, Mark, and they are completely and utterly dependent on the federal government to exist. And they are the states that Mitch McConnell is from Kentucky, right? What's his face? The House Speaker, Mike, what's his face? Why can't I think of his speaker's name?
My God.
Yeah, he's from Louisiana.
You can't think of his name because he's a zero. Listen, I was talking to my son the other night, and he laughed at me when I called somebody a zero. He said, "Why?" You said, "I just had an elder in my life, and at one time, and when somebody was just nothing, he would say, Mark, that's a zero. He's a zero, and that's what." So there's no other way to describe it.
And the states that less, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of the 10 states that are that give to the federal government more than they receive, 8 of them are 8 of them are Democrats. New Jersey gets screwed the most, right? They get the least for their federal tax dollars. But then Washington, Minnesota, California, New York. Then you have Nebraska and Missouri, which are red states. But then after that, Massachusetts, Illinois, Delaware. Like, blue states are disproportionate donor states. Red states are disproportionate taker states. And the bulk of that is when you step outside of the military states. New Mexico has a strong military presence in research as well, federal labs. DC is obviously the seat of the government. Hawaii has strong military presence. Maryland and Virginia, seat of government. Once you get us outside of the states that have heavy military presence, we're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, Social Security. So these are older states. These are states that are dependent on federal dollars. And it is the irony of ironies that the states most dependent on the federal government are the ones that vote to destroy the federal government.
That's right, and that's because you pick in that pocket. What did Lyndon Johnson say? You pick the man's pocket. You
New
can fool
Mexico.
him.
New Mexico is the smartest state in this freaking map, right? I mean, they're like, yeah, we depend on the feds for. We're gonna vote for the party that protects that funding, that protects
So
our ability to live.
right. That's the LBJ. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best color man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. He'll give him somebody to look down on, and he'll simply pick his pockets for you. He'll empty his pockets for
Yeah,
you.
there you
So
go.
that's what you now look at. Here's what's interesting. Top 20 dependent states dependent on the federal government. Only 7 of them, one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 are blue.
And three of those are the seat of government.
So
Four of them, really.
13 of these states are dependent upon the federal government, and they're subsidized by the blue states that
You saw 8 of the 10 most donor states are blue states.
right. Now, here's what I know something else on Marcos as we look at this chart and we look even further. In the far right column, federal funding as a percent of state revenues.
Yeah, look at Louisiana. Look at Montana. A third,
29.8% federal
almost
funding, a
a third
third.
of the funding.
Many of these states are averaging a third or more of federal funding as a percent of state revenues. So when the government closes, it's not helping. And so this dependency on Republicans and this rhetoric of let's close the government is really hurting the very people that they're supposed to be
Yeah. Now, for
protecting.
funsies, go to the bottom of that chart. Scroll down to the bottom to the 50, yeah, 40 to 51.
Wow, look at that.
Look how little the blue states depend on federal dollars. So when they shut down the government, again, they are disproportionately. So for those who aren't watching, uh, it's in the mid to high teens for the blue state, mostly blue states at the bottom. These are donor states. They are very, you know, very little dependent on the federal government. That's not to say that there aren't people that are going to be hurt, right? Obviously, there are
Right,
people going to be hurt, but the fact is that as a percentage of revenue, red states dramatically depend more on the federal government than blue states do. And so they are hurting themselves. And this is, again, a function of this flip where the Republican Party used to be the party of the rich and Democrats used to be the party of the poor. And that has flipped in recent decades, partly in the LBJ thing, right? The realignment after the Civil Rights Act,
right,
and partly because Fox News and propaganda. And what that has done is that Republicans now represent poor rural Americans, but they're not governing as if they represent poor rural Americans. They still govern as if they represent the rich. And so their policies are actually helping wealthier off liberals living in the coast and in big cities like me and hurting the people that voted for them. It is an absolute uh, inversion in um, how politics really works, because the people most impacted by this, most hurt by Republican policies, are the ones most likely to vote for them now.
wow. Um,
That really is the power
um,
of propaganda, and it's the power of using race and other forms of division, bigotry, in a way to divide people against their own interests.
yeah. And while you're saying, I just want to look because I want to really see how many states in red receive um, close to. This is why AI is good. I'm typing this in. Close to a third um, of their funding from the federal government, because that's an important number. That's we got to understand that. We need to know how this is work. Okay, I'm sending that up. I'm gonna let AI do that for me. I'm when it comes to this kind of research, I'm not against AI, y'all. It's quicker.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan?
As long as you verify, right? Because it does hallucinate sometimes. As long as you verify the data, because sometimes it'll make up stuff. But
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
good way to get sort of a heat check.
yeah. Well, no, I'm actually using your this I'm having it analyze this chart you sent me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
So that's what I'm doing. So we can kind of see what's what. Let's see what it if it's giving me back yet. Um um well, it isn't perfect. It only gave me three. Um let me ask this. How many
Do more than a quarter because yeah, you have
like come on close. It really went to the extreme.
oh, yeah.
Um um 25, let's do 25% or more. Let's see what we get here. Um, there we go. So that's eight right there. Montana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Alaska, Arizona, West Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi received 20, um, eight red states received 25% or more of their state revenues from federal funding.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
that doesn't do us any good.
Yeah. And so again, we subsidized that for a long time. And Mark, I don't remember any blue state or any liberal ever complaining about that. Never. We never
Hmm.
complained that we basically subsidize incredibly inefficient rural healthcare. Like, why do we have a hospital to serve 3,000 people?
Right.
And but now they're shutting down because they bought into the fiction that the fraud, waste, and abuse was happening somewhere else, when reality was that the abuse and waste was happening in rural America, and they're going to lose their farm subsidies, they're going to lose their rural broadband, they're going to lose their rural healthcare, rural education, rural postal service, all those things that they cannot fund for themselves. And if Iowa wants to provide it for them, hey, Iowa can raise their taxes. The state can raise their taxes to pay for the things that we in these high tax blue states were providing for them. And so I'm kind of I'm out of sympathy, Mark. I am totally out of sympathy. They repaid our generosity and our subsidies of their way of life by voting in the personification of bigotry, incompetence, and pretty much evil. Somebody who's never given to charity, somebody who is morally utterly bankrupt, is black hole of morality. The same Jesus people that would complain that Barack Obama went to the wrong kind of church voted for the guy who goes to no church,
Right.
paints himself as godlike. Like I good. Like I feel bad for our voters who are impacted. I don't feel bad for their voters who are impacted. This is exactly what they voted for. I hope they enjoy it, and I hope that maybe they'll learn that if they want those good things from the government, maybe they need to start voting Democratic.
I so what I'm going to do is put on the screen for those of you watching this website that Marcos has so kindly shared with us. So you can go to this website, look for yourself, and you can see. Oh, wait a minute, what happened to it? Too many windows, Chief. Uh, Doing too much. Got a lot of windows open. Okay, there we go. Bottom of the screen, and we'll put it on the podcast website, visualcapitalist.com/states dependent federal government. Just Google that. Visualcapitalist.com, states dependent federal government. All right, so
And
now we
I was
go
going
ahead.
to
I'm
say,
sorry.
I just saw some fine print that this actually excludes Medicaid payments, which would skew it even more towards red states,
Mm,
because
mm,
Medicaid subsidies extra disproportionately benefit red rural districts.
mm. We've touched on SNAP and how that's impacting the shutdown. Obviously, how that's going to impact people getting their health. These healthcare premiums are out of control already, and they're just
Yeah.
going to continue to be that way. But again, folks, visualcapitalist.com, states dependent, federal government. Visualcapitalist.com, states dependent, federal government. Let's talk about this though, because now I'm headed to Ohio to speak this weekend. Ohio, um, and folks, I'll be at Akron, as a matter of fact, for the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet. And if you all want to be a part of it, it will be at the John S. Knight Center at 1 p.m. this Sunday after church. Freedom Fund banquet, November 2nd, John S. Knight Center in Akron, Ohio, um, at 1 p.m. Akron time. Um, what famous person in history, pop quiz Marcos, lived in Akron for a time? Can you think of anybody?
I cannot think of anybody. Is it MLK?
No.
Okay.
John Brown.
How do you end up in
Akron,
Akron?
huh?
How do you end up in Akron?
I don't know, but he lived there for a time.
I
Yeah.
thought there was a story.
Well, that's no story. He just lived there. I mean, I don't know how he got there, but how did John Brown live in Akron? I mean, apparently this was before the raid on Harper's Ferry. But Akron was, well, I do know Akron was a stop on the Underground Railroad, and his house is preserved there.
Got it.
As one of those stops. It says, once again in there, y'all, John Brown moved to Akron in 1844 after being offered a position to manage a large sheep business. That's that's what he did. And he was offered that by actually the son of Akron's co-founder. So that's how he ended up in Akron.
Got it.
All right, folks. So now I want to touch on something else. And folks, we welcome your comments in the chat and what have you. Please, headed to Ohio, dealing with redistricting there. They want to do the same thing they did in Texas, like these other red states want to do. Everybody is attacking that. But you wrote a piece saying that this tactic may still not ultimately save them, correct?
Yeah. There's a couple sort of factors at play here that will determine the fate of the House next November. One of them is just if there's a wave, there's a wave, right? They can swing 20 seats in their direction, and it won't matter if Democrats pick up 50 seats, right? And that's very much a possibility. But the way they are creating these extra Republican seats is that they are diluting the strength of their existing red seats. So they're making them less Republican in order to have more of them. And in a neutral year, that might be totally fine. Like they may get away with it. If they take a district from Trump 20 plus 20 to, a district that Trump won by 8 points, it's probably still going to be a Republican seat in most years. But in a wave election, if you swing numbers 10%, you've actually swung that and you made that seat a Democratic seat. So that becomes one of the challenges. The second challenge is the Democratic states are retaliating, right? So we just found out, California is the ballot initiative is going to win by a lot. People are pissed in California. Republicans have finally pulled out. They wasted a lot of money in a losing effort where they've thrown in a towel 2 weeks ahead of the election. But beyond California, New York will redistrict. They can't do it this year because of the state constitution, but they can have it in place by 2028. And Democrats could pick up another 3-4 seats probably in New York. Illinois, they can squeeze out more seats. Maryland, they can squeeze out another seat. Virginia kind of surprised the political world by announcing a special session that would that could eliminate probably another 3 Republican seats in Virginia. So they're going through all this effort, and they're essentially broke politics. Like, this has broken politics. Redistricting was once a decade thing,
Right.
and their avaricious pursuit of power has basically broken this, tradition. Um, so that's going to offset the majority of the Republican gains in their states. Now, there is a very good chance that the Supreme Court basically eliminates what's left of the Voting Rights Act, right? So then Republicans can sit there and redistrict out all those black rural districts in the South. And um, which would, I don't know what kind of numbers you've seen, Mark, but I've seen, between 10 and 20 seats could be lost if that happens. But the Voting Rights Act also constrains Democrats' abilities in how they draw their districts in states. So by removing that, Democrats can also squeeze out more Democratic seats without having to worry about VRA and having minority majority districts in their states. So you have that factor, and there was one more. That I had in mind, but it's slipping me. So Republicans are going through a lot of trouble, and they really have turned the political world upside down and completely partisanized the apportionment process for not a lot of gain. And given the discontent, right? Trump's numbers now, his approval rating now is worse than it has ever been, including in his first term, including in the worst of his numbers during COVID. He is more unpopular now. Republicans are more unpopular. They were elected on the idea of lowering the cost of living, and the cost of living has actually gone up under their leadership because of tariffs and because of mass deportations. So you have these factors. Them trying to stem the tide feels like the dam is bursting, and they're sticking their fingers into the holes as they pop up all over the place. So it's not necessarily gonna give them the advantages that they think they are, and we're already seeing that as the blue states work to counter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well. I mean, hopefully it won't. But again, this is ridiculous, and it's an example of um, how everything is eroding. Someone called me last night. I was speaking to a, a former professor of mine, um, who's actually at Berkeley School of Theology, the Reverend Joseph Evans, and he asked me last night. He said, "Mark, is there any point to trying to still, especially for African Americans, to still try to save this country?" And I answered it this way. I said, well, the relevance in that question is if you've got one party of two trying to destroy it, one, and if the rest of us don't realize they're trying to destroy it, because I think that's part of the other problem, Marcos. I still think too many of us don't believe this. And the Democratic Party is not leading people in such a way that, let's say, hey, y'all, this is a four-alarm fire. They're not dealing with it in that way. So I don't know. I don't know that we can even have a conversation about what we can save if people don't really believe that we're in the danger we're in. This is a big quote that's taking up the whole screen. Cutting off. Right. Christopher Rogers, Mark writes on Facebook, Marcos, I completely agree with you. The Democratic Party needs to be hammering this point all day long. Who actually benefits from federal dollars, SNAP, Farm Aid, and other programs, and who the real beneficiaries are? It's honestly sad how easily people can be manipulated to vote against their own interests. That's true, Christopher, but it's also true, Christopher, that we're not educating our side enough to really understand people. I don't think people really I'm sure some people really don't are they really going to stop SNAP? Do you really think they're going to do that? Like we have to still believe the stuff, have to see the stuff to believe it, which is scary. Yes, they're
And
going to do it. They're doing it.
yeah, and you know what's really kind of distressing, Mark, is that Democrats are holding the line on the funding bill over the over the ACA extension, right? The ACA subsidies extension.
Right.
Those, again, disproportionately impact rural white Republican voting voters. And if Democrats are successful, do you think they're going to get credit from those voters for saving their health care? No, they're
Right.
going to be walking around thinking that Donald Trump got them health care. That's what they're going to be thinking.
Wow.
And
That's
that is, we have no way of letting people know, particularly in those outposts they're news deserts, right? Where their only source of information is Fox News and internet conspiracies and terrible memes. They have no way of knowing what's actually going on and who to blame. And I've seen it where you have Republican voting Latinos who are seeing their neighborhoods being sent home. You know, I see this a lot with Venezuelans. Venezuelans voted very heavily for Donald Trump, and the Trump administration just won a battle at the Supreme Court to send them home, to revoke the temporary protected status that kept them here. And they're blaming Joe Biden because Joe Biden gave them false hope. Like, Joe Biden protected them, and Joe Biden, if Joe Biden had gotten reelected or Kamala Harris had gotten reelected, that community would be safe. Yet it's his fault, not Donald Trump's fault, for revoking temporary protected status and going to the Supreme Court to make sure that they could deport all those Venezuelans.
Mm.
So you're in a cult. How do you pull people out of a cult, right? And that is the big challenge. So Democrats are fighting a battle that they will never get credit for if they win.
Right. And you, as you said, also that's part of the problem that we're dealing with. Gotta.
They may win and the government reopens, and Donald Trump can retweet, "We reopen the government in spite of the Democratic efforts to get rid of your health care." And
Yeah.
people believe it. And Trump would say stuff like that because he does all the time.
Yeah. Well, I had a woman call another show I was on the other day, and she said that this was Democrats' fault because Democrats were trying to keep the ACA for the undocumented.
Hmm.
I'm like, where are you getting that from? We got a little bit of breaking news, folks, before we get out of here. So this is in the past couple of hours. A judge is considering a demand to force the government to keep funding SNAP. Federal judge in Boston um, challenged the Trump administration's argument, this is Associated Press, that SNAP benefits could be suspended for the first time in the food aid program's history because of the government shutdown. During a hearing request, During a hearing over a request by 25 Democratic-led states to keep the funding rolling, U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani told lawyers that if the government can't afford to cover the program, there's a process to follow rather than simply suspending all benefits. The steps involve finding an equitable way of reducing benefits, is what she said. She was appointed by Obama. But, um, now that I'm reading this, why can't they just SNAP benefits be considered um, an essential, like some of these other agencies that are remaining open? If ICE is essential and law enforcement is essential, why can't people having food to eat be considered essential?
And keep in mind, Trump is sending $40 billion to Argentina to prop up his buddy Milei in Argentina. So they're happy to spend the money if they need to. And, and I think SNAP is what, a $22 billion program a year.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's you could have two snaps for the price of one Argentina Milei. But Trump doesn't care about people going hungry. He cares about helping his buddy down in Argentina.
yeah. No, this
You know,
is
no government shutdown is stopping that money to go down there for some reason.
1 in 8 Americans,
Yeah, and mostly children.
mostly children.
And these Republicans who care about family values and the sanctity of life, and yeah, not once you're born, they don't care.
So, as we go, are you ever going back to California?
I'm going back tomorrow. I'll be there for a little bit, and then I, Mark, I'm in my empty nester phase, and I am enjoying being in different parts of the country. So I'll be in your well, not your neck of the woods because you're now in Pennsylvania, but I'll be in New Jersey for a couple of weeks around Thanksgiving. Um, I'm going to be in Colorado for a big chunk of January. I'll probably be in Germany in February. Like I'm just floating. I love it. And at some point, I figure I'll be ready to go back home and nest for a while, but not
Well,
quite there yet.
you deserve. Well, I'm gonna be here the whole time in November, so we'll have to get together in New York and elsewhere and
Yeah.
take take this show on the road. Thursday Coast from Germany. What y'all think about that? Why don't I? And I'm not saying not virtual either. Me too. To be clear, not me talking to him from Germany,
On location.
but on location. All right, man. It's always good to have you, folks. Share, subscribe to Make It Plain. Subscribe to dailycoast.com. Keep us in your inbox. Let's stay informed about all things. Thanks as always, Marcos.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
If all minds are clear, it